Hello and welcome to another episode of Brand Chops, where we're chopping up brands to see what they're made of. My name is Zack Lemear.
And I'm Chris Duhaime, and today we have a special guest, Michael Haynes. Michael is the founder and principal consultant at Listen, Innovate, Grow, and he's also a growth specialist at To Excel. He has over 25 years of go-to-market strategy experience and has worked with companies across the globe to develop, implement customer strategies and programs designed to drive business growth. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen. A pleasure to be here.
And we also have to make note here that he's our very first international guest, coming all the way from Australia, all the way down under, coming to New Hampshire. Love that you took the time, and it's like 6:30 in the morning there, so this is an important podcast. Everybody.
6:30, and this is something regularly that I do because while I'm based here in Sydney, Australia, I do work with clients globally, Canada, US being two of my key markets. So 6:30 in the morning, this is a regular occurrence for me, working with clients and interacting with great people such as yourself. So all good.
I had the pleasure of seeing one of his presentations at a summit in Dallas last year, and I was blown away. And he's got some really cool things to say. So why don't you tell us more about you and how you help others?
Sure, Zach. So again, I'm Michael Haynes. I'm a business growth specialist, and my focus, my passion is working with small and medium B2B accounting, technology, and law firms. And I work with them to help them develop and implement their overarching go-to-market strategies to acquire, retain business clients and drive the growth that they seek. I've been doing this for 13 years now, I think. I've almost lost count, but really love doing it, working with small and medium professional service firms, accounting, tech, and law, and helping them to really have the impact and the results that they want to achieve.
And for the people who don't know, can you define a little bit more what a go-to-market strategy is?
Sure. So your go-to-market strategy is your overarching plan or as to how you're going to take, in the case of my clients, accounting, tech, and law firms, how they're going to take their services, their solutions to market. So this is the overarching plan. So marketing and sales are components of the go-to-market, but there's more to your go-to-market. Go-to-market is everything around identifying the right market opportunities. So what industries, what geographic markets you're going to go after, making sure you have an understanding of those clients. What are we going to offer as a full suite of offerings, as well as what are our strategies for client acquisition, retention, and growth. So it's that full end-to-end strategy that I help to develop and implement with small and medium accounting, tech, and law firms.
I think one of the things that I would be most interested in is what are some of the other components? You mentioned sales and marketing as being parts of that. What can you just go over some of the other components that you dig into?
Sure. With my clients, so using a live example, so I'm working with an accounting firm here in Sydney. So we do everything from identifying, what are those key industry verticals that we're going to be focusing on. So one of my accounting firms here, we focus on building and construction and real estate as being the two key verticals. They're taking a very local market focus. So we really drilled down as to where we're going to be focusing on in terms of the industries and markets. I'm also working with them on what is going to be their full suite of offerings. Based on having an understanding of those firms that they're going after, the buyers and what they require, we're now mapping out a full suite of advisory and accounting services, and we're really building those out. And then it is about putting your plans in place for client acquisition, as well as retention and growth. So it's looking at your offerings, looking at your market opportunities, as well as your marketing, sales, service, and support. So it's really cross-functional across the entire firm. I'm pulling all of those elements together.
And where does branding come into play with all of this?
Branding is important. Branding is a component of your go-to-market strategy. Once we've identified who we're going to be going after, again, I'll use the case of the accounting firm. We know those industry verticals. We did a lot of in-depth interviews with the decision makers of the key clients that they're going after, and we know what they're looking for, making sure that brand messaging, that positioning, that reflects the requirements of the leaders of building and construction firms, real estate firms that they're trying to acquire, making sure that their messaging is on point is an important component so that it's really, so when we're getting their visibility out in the marketplace, it is going to resonate with those decision makers of those particular types of firms, the buyers within those firms they're seeking to acquire.
So it sounds like you're kind of doing some of the legwork of what people just skip over a lot of times. So they don't necessarily always want to dig into their core audience as much as it sounds like you're doing for them, which, they just guess. They guess at what their core audience does and wants, and you're going to be getting some hard facts about that.
Chris, you're exactly on point because in B2B, because I work with B2B accounting, tech, and law firms, and in B2B, understanding the requirements of your decision makers versus users, it's a subtle distinction, but it's a critical one. So with all of my clients, I'm always making sure we have clarity and in-depth understanding with respect to three things around from a buyer point of view. Who makes the decision to buy? What are their priorities and how do they buy? And those are the three critical questions you need to have an in-depth understanding of because that really provides a framework for your full go-to-market strategy. And that often, to your point, Chris, that's often something that I find clients have little, sometimes no understanding of, what are the key requirements. To use that building, to use my accounting firm as an example. So building and construction firm leaders, what are the priorities? What are they trying to achieve? And having an understanding of those priorities. And how do they go about choosing advisory services? Who do they talk to? Where do they go? What are those trusted sources? And what are they looking for from them? Making sure we have depth and clarity around that is extremely important.
I've heard you say the word clarity a lot, and I think this is something that we focus on a lot. Clarity, focus, consistency, systems. I truly believe that those are the four things that are making or breaking every business. Either you're doing well because of it or you're not because of it. So as part of this clarity, how important is market research in developing that go-to-market strategy, and what methods should small businesses use to get the next step going?
Yeah, so great question, Zach. Market research is very important. I use the term listening that you need to, and that's why my company is called Listen, Innovate, Grow. Listening, getting that in-depth understanding is quite critical, and you need to have that in-depth understanding on three levels. There's listening to you, so within your company, understanding your goals, your priorities, key objectives, what are your strengths. Then there's listening to the market. So you need to have an in-depth understanding of those current industries and geographic markets that you currently serve and those that you seek to serve. For small and medium businesses, I am a big believer in them using industry and their professional associations of their target industries. So again, I'm going to refer to my accounting firm here in Sydney as an example. So we are tapping into the industry associations around building and construction because your industry and professional associations are a repository where you can get all of the key insights you need around market trends, developments, key competitors, some of your broad customer needs. So small and medium firms, tight budgets, limited on time, I always tell them you should be members, ideally, of those industry and professional associations of your key target segments. So you can tap into their newsletters, their reports, webinars, key events to get that market understanding. So that's listening to the market. Then there's listening to the customer. And in B2B, we need to be listening at that buyer level. So gaining that depth of understanding around the three critical questions. Who makes the decision to buy in terms of getting advisory services? What are their priorities? How they buy? One of the best sources for small, medium businesses, really for all businesses, is to have discussions with a cross-section of the decision makers of some of your key current clients. So having those depth interviews, discussions is one key way of doing so that you can understand where your clients are at, where they're looking to go, what are some of their key priorities, their key objectives, and key challenges. Documenting those discussions and sharing them across your team is one of the most effective ways and one of the critical kinds of research. So between your industry and professional associations and talking to your current clients, talking to prospects are some of the best effective market research, or what I call listening mechanisms, to help set the framework and path for your go-to-market strategy.
One thing that I was interested in, Zack had mentioned AIR. That's something that you promote a lot.
Sure.
I don't know much about it, but I would love to learn more about it.
Great question, Chris. So accounting, tech, and law firms, so we fall under the umbrella and ourselves, all three of us, within professional services. There's been a lot of research that has been done into the requirements of what, in our world of professional services, what decision makers are looking for. And the number one thing that buyers of professional services, be it, marketing and branding services, and for my business, accounting, tech, and law, the number one thing our clients are looking for is expertise. and depth of expertise. So therefore, our focus of what we need to be doing as professional service providers is we need to provide AIR, advice, insights, and recommendations, hence the AIR, to address the priorities, problems, and key challenges of those decision makers we currently serve and seek to serve. So the fundamental thing that needs to drive everything that any professional services firm needs to be doing is to understand and provide the right kinds of AIR, advice, insights, and recommendations to the decision makers of their key clients and prospects.
And do you have some methods for them to be able to get that advice out that you would recommend over others? Obviously, we're doing podcasts now, putting things on LinkedIn. Do you have any other spots that would be good for small businesses?
Sure. So the go-to-market framework. So I have a framework, what I call my buyer AIR-driven go-to-market playbook that I work with all of my clients on how we execute. And the go-to-market playbook has essentially 4 pillars. And it's all about based on once you have that understanding of your key clients in terms of what are their key priorities and challenges, and you want to start providing that advice, insights, and recommendations. There's really 3 key pillars to do so: through content, what I call micro events, and through strategic collaboration. And so those are the 3 key pillars that you want to be executing on. There is the 4th one around your advisory offerings and making sure we have the right kind of offerings. But really, from an ongoing execution standpoint, content, micro events, and strategic collaboration are the 3 key ways in which you're going to be able to get that AIR out there, which will hopefully then enable you to acquire, retain, and grow the business clients that you seek. And I can go into each of those pillars if you so wish.
I would love to listen. I think one of the things I would be interested in is the micro events. I feel like maybe some examples of what those would look like. It sounds like a great idea.
Okay, so just to give a bit of context. So decision makers, so in terms of what our professional service firm buyers of our services are looking for, they are looking for, they want to understand best practices. They want to know where the new opportunities, they want to know solutions. And so in addition to putting a lot of content out there, our decision makers also want opportunities to interact with peers, interact with experts, get different perspectives. So content, yes, is very good to be putting out a lot of the how to do so, but your micro events, and so micro events are what I call short events of I would say 3 hours or less, where there's an opportunity for folks to engage in discussion, dialogue, ask questions. That's where the magic happens. That's how you unlock the conversation. So what do I mean by micro events? So these are any opportunities that you have to interact with your clients and prospects. It could be the likes of roundtables, panels, mastermind sessions, office hours, live stream Q&A. These shorter type of events are very effective because our clients, our prospects are very busy people, but they will make time to have those opportunities for engagement, to have those interactions. And so your content and your micro events work very well together. And so having those kinds of events, which you can do in person, what I found virtual is very effective because our clients, our prospects, our buyers are so busy. Online makes it much easier for them to fit it into their schedule. And when you're providing that value add and they need to be AIR driven, this is not about selling. It is about providing advice, insights, recommendations, opportunities for dialogue. That's where the magic happens. That's where you can start the dialogue, start building the relationships. So those are just some examples of kind of smaller micro events that you can be implementing in conjunction with your content as well.
And you think the 3-hour threshold is kind of like where you're at for business owners to be able to go to some of those events?
With my clients, we keep them fairly short and tight. So some of the events are 90 minutes, 2 hours. So I consider a micro event, generally with my clients, we call it up to 2 hours. We try to keep them short, sharp, and tight because our folks are very busy. But we found really good success that you can have these kinds of short engagements, but very interactive, very AIR-driven. They're very effective, and it's much easier for a decision maker to fit that into their schedule as opposed to the 3-day summits, the 5-day challenges, and some of the other types of mechanisms, which can work, but they can be often difficult in terms of getting your desired audience to attend. But the shorter type of events, they can, and often done virtually, it's easier for them to be fitting to fit into their diaries.
To your point about these micro events, as far as advice, insight, and recommendation, that's also a place where you can start becoming the authority and the trusted source of truth, which I think is super important, because if they're going to come back to you for that advice, or they're going to actually believe in that advice, you've got to put that position out there that you are that source of truth. And I think those micro events are a very powerful way of doing it. So I have one more question for you. We've learned a little bit what a go-to-market strategy is, what kind of tactics you can put into place, how you can use this. Now, what metrics should small businesses track to measure the success of this go-to-market strategy?
Oh, look, yeah. So there's a number of metrics you want to be looking at. You want to be looking at, in terms of, the number of, obviously, the ultimate aim is to get sales. So we want to see, what we're getting in terms of, new clients, client spend, are we getting renewals? But also we want to be looking at engagement. So, how many people are coming to your event? How many people are recurring coming to your event? Looking at your metrics around content, who's viewing it, what content are they spending lots of time on, those kinds of things. So there are your metrics that you want to be looking at from an engagement perspective, time spent on a webinar, the amount of views, pages spent on an article, who's coming to your events, repeat folks, where is your content being shared, with whom. So those are some of the metrics we want to be looking at in terms of the engagement that we're having. Because with B2B, it can be often a longer sales cycle. So we want to understand the engagement across content, our micro event, and then hopefully of course, to your usual metrics around leads, sales conversations, actual sales, average client spends, renewals, those kinds. So there's a number of metrics we would be using across from a content from across the various pillars, as well as your typical revenue metrics around acquisition, spend, engagement, renewals.
Thank you for sharing all that. I know that it also, especially with people that we work with, it could also depend on the goal, right? So in our case, it's not always a financial goal, or sometimes it's brand awareness. Sometimes we're breaking into a market, and it takes a while for you to become, a brand that people know, like, and trust. And that's right there. Like, I mean, if you think about cases like Uber, their first 3 or 4 years were just trying to convince the public to get into a stranger's car. The thing that we've been told for generations to not do. And now it's a new business model, and we had to figure around this. And, obviously it worked.
I just have one more question. Obviously, we're talking to small businesses a lot in this podcast. So I just want to know, is there any mistakes that you've seen that maybe they're making that you could sort of help them or get them to not make those mistakes, or just warn them against them? Is there anything that comes to mind for that?
A couple things. One, the importance of listening. I find with every client I've gone into, they do little to no listening, both at that market level, so they don't know what are the industry trends, developments, what's going on. So you need to have that depth of understanding, because our clients expect that now. The bar for us in professional services, our buyers have a very high expectation of the depth of expertise. So you must immerse yourself in the market. I'm very big on my clients living in the market. You not only should be tapping into those industry and professional associations, you need to become involved with them. Who are the members of the ecosystem? So getting that depth of understanding around your market is very important. So again, industry and professional association is a great way to help fill that gap. The second gap is about having an understanding around your clients and the decision makers and what they require. So start having those discussions with your key clients. Who are the ones that are your current clients that are making, generating most revenue? You need to start having some discussions with them a couple of times a year. So tapping into your industry and professional associations and talking to your clients, those are the two big areas, the big gaps that I see that small, medium businesses, like everyone else, we must engage in those activities because our clients expect that depth of expertise.
The thing that I keep hearing from you is the big emphasis on listening. And I agree. I think that a lot of clients will assume, and they'll spend and they'll guess, and they'll spend and they'll guess, and they'll hope and they'll pray, and they'll spend and they'll guess. And so, one of the things that we always say at our company is we focus so much on the strategy and the planning so you're not stuck spending and guessing. I mean, there's always going to be some unknowns everywhere whenever it comes to this, right? There's nothing's ever 100%, but by locking into your target, your ideal client profile, by really listening, a lot of times we'll do attitudinal research where we'll look at not just the reviews or something or feedback on a social media post, Or we will look at the competitors. What do people love and what do they not love? And how could you maybe position yourself as the solution to the thing that they're not getting from competitor A, B, or C? And it's all out there for free. It's just staring you in the face. You just have to be willing to read it and listen. And that's great. So, all right. Well, if anybody wanted to get in contact with you for a go-to-market strategy, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Two places they can go, Zach. They can go on LinkedIn and connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn, and they can send a connection request there. Or they can go to my website, listeninnovategrow.com. That's all one word, listeninnovategrow.com. So either on LinkedIn or listeninnovategrow.com and reach out to me, and I'm happy to have a discussion to see how I can help those small and medium B2B companies thrive and succeed.
Fantastic, fantastic. So we'll also put a lot of this information in the show notes and everything for anyone listening. If you weren't able to get that, don't worry about it. We'll make sure you get it. Thank you again for guesting on our show and being the first international guest, Michael. It was fantastic. And tune in next week where we chop up brands to see what they're made of.
Thanks so much.
Michael.
Brand Chops is brought to you by the fine people at Pivot Creative. Pivot Creative is a full-service branding and marketing agency that partners with businesses to build brands that connect so that every dollar you spend is an investment and not an expense. If you need some branding or marketing guidance, a website, a new brand, or want to learn more about one of the topics we cover on the show, please reach out to us at pivotcreative.com. If you know someone that would benefit from learning more from one of our shows, please share the episode. Visit brand-chops.com. And as always, like and subscribe if you find this content to be helpful. See you next time on Brand Chops, where we chop up brands to see what they're made of.